You like mock drafts? I like mock drafts, especially in January. Today we're going on PFF, doing the mock draft simulator, going pick by pick. We're doing the first round. We're going to do a bunch of these. It's fun to do. We like simulating the draft. We like looking at the picks, talking ball on the players. So we're going to do this all draft season long. Before we dig in, you need to click that subscribe button right now. We're covering these rookies every day. We're looking at them. We're looking at how they can be valuable for Dynasty Fantasy Football for the long term. We're looking at your rookie drafts and values. Click that button. Stop missing out. But we're looking at the mock draft simulator. First pick on the board is the Tennessee Titans. And I'm seeing a lot of mock drafts with Cam Ward being the first overall pick. Like, that is the trending thing. Cam Ward, Shedeur Sanders, sometimes maybe somebody else random in there, mainly a quarterback. So when we're looking at quarterback for this team here, I got two options. There's really just two options in the first round. We're looking at Cam Ward, we're looking at Shedeur Sanders. And my top option right now, even though I want to dig deeper in the quarterback position, it's kind of like an entire draft season thing. And there's other quarterbacks. We're watching Alar, see if he comes back and all that stuff. That being said, when you're looking at the two quarterbacks for the now, and it's not like it's going to be wrong because we're going to do like a million mock drafts, I think the fun look for the Titans and the one guy I would think about right now, maybe Shedeur Sanders. The thing about Shedeur Sanders, one, everywhere he's been at, he's been solid, and he holds on the ball a little bit too long. There's some down things. The same thing with Cam Ward. Both of them are not generational prospects, not really quarterbacks that you're really in love with. That's what the market's saying. But he's a big-time playmaker. He's got a lot of upside. Now we're looking at the Cleveland Browns. The Cleveland Browns, what PFF's saying needs-wise. Quarterback, running back, tackle, cornerback. That being said, when I look at this team, could they forego quarterback and get Travis Hunter? Could that possibly happen? Because I'm seeing a lot of mock drafts with that. There's a big possibility with that. I think, considering we've started 40 quarterbacks since 1999, considering what we saw at the quarterback position, considering we're at the top of the draft and that may not happen again, and you do not know what's going to happen in the offseason. Maybe we bring in another quarterback. We got the news with the Achilles injury with Watson, even though that doesn't really matter. We saw how the play was looking like earlier in the season. We're running to the podium, and we're going to select Cam Ward. What I like about Cam Ward is his decision-making. He's shown his ability to transition quickly from one program to another, from where he was at, instantly produced at Miami. This is a guy with a good fast mental processor. Again, we got to develop. We got to get better. Like all these quarterbacks in this year's class, not a strong class. But when you're at the top, you got to take that look. Now I'm looking at the Giants here. Very interesting spot. We have a lot of needs. Tackle's a big need. DB's a big need. We got Travis Hunter looking at us. Heisman Trophy winner. And I don't see him slipping far. And he's got multi-purpose in him with him playing wide receiver. And you can just throw him out there. And if you bring in another quarterback via free agency, you're going to be looking for that. You're going to help smooth that over. So maybe you get him 15 to 20 routes a game or something, 10 to 15. And Malik Neighbors is going to get all the targets. But when I look at Travis Hunter, I don't see them really pass on them unless an offensive tackle really rises in the draft. So we're going to roll with that. Now we're with the New England Patriots. The sexy thing right now would be to get them their wide receiver. To get Drake May his guy. Because Kayshon Boutte was running 90% of the routes last year. Kayshon Boutte was getting most of the work. Look at that wide receiver core and think Pop Douglas is okay as your wide receiver. 2/1. 1 when it comes to production. 2 when it comes to the routes ran. And T-Mac's got the ball skills. This wide receiver class isn't deep. When I really think about that, I think T-Mac is what they're probably want to go with for Drake May. Another thing, you can go tackle. But tackle's a little bit deeper. So let's pull T-Mac for the Patriots. Now we're going for the Jacksonville Jaguars. We got a lot of needs here. Offensive line Interior offensive line is more of like a second and third round option when we're looking at what's available. Defensive line, cornerback. When I'm thinking about that, I'm thinking about those Michigan boys right there. Will Johnson and Graham for the Jacksonville Jaguars. When I'm looking at them, thinking about what's best available. How about we get it done on the back end? We select Will Johnson for the Jacksonville Jaguars. Now we're looking at the Raiders. They got a lot of needs. This team needs to revamp badly. Let's take a look at the quarterback position. Let's see what's available. Dylan Gabriel, too high. Will Howard, definitely too high. Carson Beck, Quinn Ewers. Ohio is where I'm from. So back when he was at Ohio State, I heard his name 1,000 different ways. So I'm still struggling with that because that's how it is. Jackson Dart could be the riser here. But I'm not going to get that frisky with you. I'm just not going to do that. I'm not doing that today. That's not that type of mock. Ashton Jeanty, if the quarterback position doesn't have any huge risers and that they're still struggling at running back, and I feel like that's a huge hole, at that value, that could be something we're seeing at this pick. But I'm going to execute common sense here. I think when we're looking at this team, we just need to take best available with what we got right now. I think Mason Graham's a guy you shouldn't really sleep on. So we're going to pull that trigger for the Raiders. Now we're going to the 7th pick here, and we're looking at the Jets. We got some options here, and the Jets like to stack defense, and we got some players to look at for this. Quarterback's always an option. We just looked at that. It was not looking good. Interior defensive line, they got sniped, and it's going to be a bit when it comes for the value for that. However, maybe you always need edge rushers. Edge rushers are always good to get, and you got one here at the value here with Abdul Carter. The value is there for this. Let's pull that trigger. Let's get that pick. Let's just take the value. Now we got the Carolina Panthers and defensive line DB. We got Starks. We got Will Campbell. We got Nick Scorton looking at us from Tamu. That being said, defensive line has been zapped a little bit. Taking best player available here. I'm either going edge or I'm going safety here when I'm looking at the cornerback position. Let's take a look at that right here. See what's on the board. Benjamin Morris is a guy I'm looking at. I love Trey Amos. I like those two. Defensive-wise, I'm still learning the draft. Offense, I'm pretty good. However, when you look at the wide receiver depth chart, I mean, you do not have a wide receiver one. You do not have that really. You got Jalen Coker, who we're hoping that hits. Could this be an area where we see them pull on wide receiver? Could this be an area where that sneaks up on us? Because you got Adam Thielen, you got Xavier Legette. Are you feeling good about that? Are you feeling good about that depth chart at the wide receiver spot, knowing how shallow the wide receiver position is? However, defense just seems logical here. And I'm just going to pull the trigger on Starks for the Carolina Panthers. I'm looking at New Orleans Saints. And I'm looking at their needs. And I'm looking at what I saw last year was a bunch of injuries at the wide receiver position. Chris Olave, concussion protocol back half the season. A lot of injuries. They need somebody else next to Chris Olave that's very talented. And when I think about Chris Olave, stretches the field, very nice. Very good getting those deep targets. They need a guy that can do that, but also can work underneath, can work the shallow game. I think this is a good spot for Luther Burden here because there's good volume in this offense, and I think this is a good spot for him for Dynasty Fantasy Football as well. I think him and Chris Olave, I think those two would be a good pair. I'm going to pull the trigger there. Now we're looking at the Chicago Bears. Running backs a need. Offensive line's always a need. We saw that. We can move guys around. Edge is a need. That being said, you got Will Campbell on the board. You got some interesting options here. I would pull the trigger on Will Campbell here. I'm not going to let an offensive tackle run loose on me. I'm just going to take it, and I'll shuffle the board as it will. That's what I would do. Now we're looking at the San Francisco 49ers. tackle, guard, defensive line. Calvin Banks is on the board. That being said, that's a need. We're there. Stacking offensive tackles is not a bad thing. We're at pick 11. Let's roll with that for the Niners. I think we all know what the Cowboys might do. On top of that, when we're thinking about the Dallas Cowboys, this is a team that will mine value to a fault here. They will mine value to a fault. I could see them taking something not very attractive, like a Wyatt Millum or something like that at this pick or something like that. That is a Cowboys thing. The sexy thing sometimes happens with this team. They are desperately in need at the running back position. Ashton, Jeanty, just for the sake of this mock, let's pull that trigger. Are you in lockstep? Do you like the Dallas Cowboys pulling running back this early? Or do you feel like they can go other positions? Running back second round, third round, fourth round. This is a deeper running back class. That's why I question that. We're looking at the Dolphins here. Tackle, interior defensive line. Let's see what we got on the interior defensive line right now. Kenneth Grant, Talik Williams, CJ Sanders. And then on top of that, they need a safety. What we got there? We're down the board a little bit. We can probably play around here. What's available? What's the best available here? What we got? We got a guy falling to us. We got two guys falling to us that I like here. I like Jalen Walker. I know it's not specific needs, but you also got Mika Egbuka right there, a good route runner. I think we're going to save him for later. I see a lot of people mocking wide receivers to the Miami Dolphins, but I think when I look at this and I see the value coming off the board, we're going to take that edge rusher and we're just going to load up. That's what we're going to do. Now we're looking at the Colts. We're looking at that. And we're stacked at wide receiver. We're stacked at running back. Edge is something we can go after. It's kind of been zapped off the board right now. Defensive back, something we can go after. But the one thing we can do to help Anthony Richardson or whatever quarterback's at back there is get our tight end. And this is a very good tight end class. You can wait till the second round. I do not suggest it though. I think the market's going to go pretty hot on this. How about we roll with Tyler Warren? Good pass catcher downfield, good around the red zone. Nothing against Colston Loveland, but I want to be a little different. I think that's a good mix for that. Falcons, they got wide receiver as a need, but I don't see that being a huge pressing need. We got edge, linebacker, corner. The thing about this, I like Jalen Walker. He's out of value. I like Benjamin Morrison a lot. He's right in lockstep around the pick should be at. I like Jalen Walker a lot. We're going to pull that trigger. Arizona Cardinals, tackle guard. We need a tackle. Let's get Josh Simmons. I think that's a quick look for them. Now we're going to the Cincinnati Bengals here. Wide receivers in need, depending on what they do this offseason. I think when we look at Jermaine Burton, we look at that scenario, it's going all kinds of bad. It's going all kinds of bad. And we look at the Bengals, and they got Jamar Chase stretching the field. T. Higgins could be there or not. But if he's there or not, they're still wanting a wide receiver 3. They showed that with the pick of Jermaine Burton. They showed that with how much they try to get Yoshi on the field. Mika Egbuka is a first-round caliber wide receiver. Falling to them a little bit in the draft. I think he's a little bit underrated. I think he's showing up here in the college football playoff. I think it may not be great for fantasy football, but I think building this team, you can go that. You can get one of these tackles. I think Mika Egbuka might be good to help get some more firepower in the offense. Seattle. And we're looking at center, guard, edge. Let's see what edges is up available here that we can look at. And we got some bodies here to look at. Things are getting better. I like Pierce. Pierce is a fun one. And we're also looking at linebacker. So let's see what they got available there. So we got Stewart, Pierce. We don't have a linebacker for a bit. Campbell, maybe all right to reach a little bit for that. I believe Williams is a guy to pull a trigger on for the Seattle Seahawks. Now we're looking at the Houston Texans here. We got some tackles on the board. We can't just let them slip, right? We can't let them slip. Interior defensive line has been zapped a little bit, but we're right around that range. We're right around that range. Let's get a tackle. Let's go with the tackle from Minnesota, even though it's not a huge position of need. That is something that over time you can look at and be like, yeah, We need to add some value. We need to have some extra bodies. When it comes to the Denver Broncos, the tight end position has been lacking. They also need to add the pass catcher role. The wide receiver position is getting zapped up a little bit. The talent pool at tight end, once we get to where the Broncos are picking again, will probably be zapped up a little bit. Where the wide receiver position, the tiers are dropping, and you might be able to find some guys in free agency. Let's go with Colston Loveland here from Michigan. Let's go with that. I think that's a good pick. That's a good add for Bo Nix. And when you got a young quarterback like that, you're going to be adding talent to the team. Next, we are looking at the Buccaneers here. DB's in need here. And like I said, I like Benjamin Morrison a lot. I like him a lot. He's falling a little bit in the draft. He shouldn't be. So we're going to pull that trigger. Steelers, wide receiver, QB, DB. So none of the wide receivers really fell in the draft. Quarterbacks, not likely. Defensive back is starting to get zapped up. We got Trey Amos. If you want to reach on that, if you really want to do that. But I believe the Steelers' way is just to add talent to the offensive line and just take those values. This is a good trade back scenario. So how about Wyatt from West Virginia going to the Pittsburgh Steelers? And on top of that, the Rams, tight end, tackle, linebacker. So when I'm thinking about this, there is a guy I'm thinking about that's a little bit deeper down the board that I think would be a great addition that I like a lot. Is Harold Fanning. I think him going to the Rams or him sneaking up higher in the draft is going to happen right after Senior Bowl. There's going to be a lot of talks on that. I think we're playing around right now. I like Cameron Williams. I don't like the fact that I still see his name up here, so we're going to draft him. I think we're going to the Rams. I think edge, cornerback, wide receiver. They're kind of deep, but kind of not at wide receiver. They're kind of weird there. But we got Stewart still available from TAMU. Tyleik Williams from Ohio State we could look at. Trey Amos I like a lot. That could be a guy to look at. I think Stewart's a good addition here for the Packers for the defensive perspective. When we're looking at the Chargers here, we're seeing a team that needs a running back. O'Mara Hampton could be a sneaky ad right here. It's not like there's going to be a ton of running backs late in the second round because running backs are going to come off the board. You're going to be looking at third round gets, but O'Mara Hampton's going to be gone. Some of the other top running backs are going to be gone in this area of the draft. You got Kenneth Grant there. You got Marion Hampton. I'm thinking about it hard. Some of the other positions are zapped up here. I think Marion Hampton would be the top running back selected in last year's draft. And the top running back selected in last year's draft had torn ACLs. This is a huge need for the Chargers. I don't know if you can rely on J.K. Dobbins in that injury history, Gus Edwards in that injury history, and what they got, unless you pick somebody up in free agency. But this is a talent. This is a huge fit, too. Marion Hampton. And also with how he plays the game, fits the hardball system. That just makes sense. That just makes sense to me. Looking at the Washington Commanders, and a good fit with them at wide receiver would be Emeka Egbuka, but we're picking too late for that. We're picking too late. Kenneth Grant's still on the board. I don't like that. That's going to give you some good talent. DB is an opportunity for you guys. When we're looking at that, James Pierce, if you're looking for edge, I don't want to reach too far for edge as well. When I'm thinking about this, I'm going Kenneth Grant. I want him off the board. Now we're looking at the Baltimore Ravens. Edge, cornerback. Thinking about that. Looking at the Ravens here and looking at what they could add here at DB. I am a Trey Amos homer. I like him a lot. And we're just going to pull the button right here and get him. For the Minnesota Vikings, guard. Looking at guard, let's look at the interior offensive line. It's just a later position. It's just a later position this year. Maybe look at center. Center's baked into that. But also let's look at offensive tackle. The offensive tackle group's now zapped up. It's probably going to be zapped up by the time we get to this portion of the draft. Another position to look at is probably corner. See what they got. And we're going with our boy here from ECU. I think he's going to rise the board between now and draft season. Anyways, we're going to smash that button. Buffalo Bills, wide receiver, of course, we can make that play. But that might be better going after some veterans later in free agency. However, Tyleik Williams is there. That is a position of need. Linebacker is kind of zapped up a bit. Let's go Tyreek Williams from the Ohio State Buckeyes. Now we're looking at Eagles. Eagles fans were in the mock drafts last year, and they're like, there's no way. There's no way we're drafting DB. There's no way we're doing that. It's still a position of need per PFF. We're looking at edge. Pierce is still on the board. It's right value. I liked what he did at Tennessee. We're going to pull the trigger there. Now we're looking at the Chiefs. D-line, linebacker. I don't think they're going to get too sexy here. I think this defense has been rather stout, and I think they want to keep it backfilled with good talent. I think TJ Sanders coming on down for the Chiefs is an all right get. Now we're looking at the Detroit Lions. We got some value here at the board. It's also been zapped up a bit. But also we got to think about Dan Campbell. Who would be a good Dan Campbell guy? Who would be a good Dan Campbell guy out of this list? When I think about that, Jack Sawyer. Jack Sawyer. That is something Dan Campbell would do. Just something off the wall, a guy that chews up kneecaps. That's what I think about when I see Jack Sawyer. And this team will go rogue compared to the market and do what they think is right. Kind of like what analytic nerds would say about Jahmyr Gibbs. Jack Sawyer here, an edge here that can help them get some depth while developing in the system and be a little something more. And another guy that's just tough for this team. It just seems like something Dan Campbell would do. That's what we're doing here. So we're looking at this mock draft. They're not doing grades yet. First pick, Shedeur. Second, Cam Ward, Travis Hunter. T-Mac going to the Patriots. We go rogue on a lot of picks. O'Marin Hampton sneaking in the first round. When you think about that logically, when you think about all these teams here and what could potentially happen when we get deeper into the draft, that is something we could see is a second running back sneaking in the first. Odds are not. But with my imagination here, that could potentially happen. Dallas Cowboys going Ashton Jeanty. I think there's a high probability that the Raiders look at that and be like, hey, let's pull the trigger on Ashton Jeanty. Let's see what happens here, especially if they can get a quarterback in free agency. I don't know about that, but they were hurting pretty bad at the running back position. The running back position was in shambles. It was actually, when you throw in those injuries, it was about as bad or as worse as Dallas Cowboys on some weeks. They did get some good production from guys like Amir Abdullah, Sincere McCormick. Why the Ashton Jeanty name starts falling into the fold. Let me know what you think in the comments below. We're going to do more of these mock drafts in the future, move some players around and everything else. I want to thank you for watching. Catch you on the next video.